90-day Fiancé franchise alum Armando Rubio is turning into a monster, but it may be because his husband, Kenny Niedermeyer, is changing him. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching for more details. 90-day Fiancé franchise alum Armando Rubio is turning into a monster, but it may be because of his husband, Kenny Niedermeyer's influence. Viewers were first introduced to Kenny, 61, and Armando, 34, on 90-Day Fiancé. The Other Way Season 2, where Kenny's initial move to Armando's native Mexico was highlighted. Once in Mexico, Kenny met Armando's family while they struggled to accept Armando as a gay man. Armando has a daughter, Hannah, from his previous marriage. His wife passed away in a car accident, and he and Kenny met in an online support group for gay fathers. Kenny and Armando got married on 90-Day Fiancé. The Other Way Season 3 in a lavish Mexican wedding, where it became clear the pair were accepted for who they were within Armando's family. Fans have been watching Kenny and Armando on 90-Day Fiancé. The Other Way Season 5 after they skipped having a storyline on Season 4. This season, Kenny and Armando have decided to follow through with having a child together after going back and forth on the idea for a long time. They've been exploring surrogacy, while the topic of Kenny nearly being a senior has been at the forefront of their moral dilemma. Kenny has 4 children and several grandchildren in the U.S., whom he is really close to. While Kenny visits them in Florida occasionally, and they support their dad's relationship with Armando, Kenny has not been physically around when they've needed him. Armando could be to blame for this. Armando has selfishly decided that Kenny needs to be in Mexico because his family is there, especially for Hannah, after losing her mom. While it's true that Hannah needs her relatives, Armando is not letting Hannah get to know Kenny's side of the family the way she could. Kenny and Armando have lived in Mexico for 4 years, but Kenny never seems to bring up the idea of trying out living in the U.S., maybe because he knows Armando would not be on board. Kenny uprooted his whole life to be with Armando in Mexico, and it doesn't always seem like Armando fully appreciates that. However, Kenny does play a big part in this because he is trying to appease Armando by not making a big deal out of attempting to move to the U.S. Armando is fervent about having a baby with Kenny, despite Kenny being in his 60s. Armando not only wants Hannah to have a sibling, but also wants to have a baby for himself, and one that is biologically Kenny's, in order to blend their families. Kenny has continuously brought up his age as a major moral factor in the option not to move forward with having a child. Kenny knows he will be in his 80s when his child is a teenager and in their 20s. Armando seems to disregard that important and valid notion and wants to push on for his own sake. While it makes sense for Armando to have a biological piece of Kenny for when he's gone, it seems irresponsible to have a child, given their circumstances with Kenny's age. Armando pushed Kenny hard to say yes to following through with surrogacy, with the notion that having a baby with Kenny was his ultimate dream, and Kenny did not want to crush Armando's dream. Kenny let himself be coerced by Armando into having a baby, but Armando may not have ever pressed the idea in the first place if Kenny shut it down early. Armando showed his true diva colors during his and Kenny's wedding planning and execution. Kenny let Armando take the reins and plan an extravagant Mexican wedding, and even allowed his sunset ceremony dream to be put to the side. Kenny underscored that Armando was being a bridezilla, which gave way to Armando's continued behavior. If Kenny wasn't so flippant about Armando's attitude, it's possible Armando would have behaved better. On 90-Day Fiancé. The Other Way Season 5, Kenny convinced Armando to spend 6 weeks living in Mexico City, with the potential idea of moving there. They had been living in the quiet and private seaside community of La Mission, Mexico, which is a days-long drive from Mexico City. Kenny wanted to move to the big city for a change of pace and for Hannah to experience different schools and a different way of living. Armando was very resistant to the idea because he was afraid and liked the familiarity of their lives in La Mission. Ultimately, Kenny convinced Armando to agree to the move after using Hannah's compliance with the idea as ammunition. Armando was initially adamantly unwilling to concede to change, but Kenny was able to press him into the move. While Armando is not great with change, Kenny is attempting to broaden Armando's horizons for the better. But it's proven not to be easy because it took a lot of convincing.